Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Believe in Duke podcast. I am Steve Wiseman, the Duke beat writer for the Raleigh News and Observer, joined as always by Sheldon Williams, Duke Hall of Famer. Sheldon, the season came to an abrupt end against Tennessee last Saturday night in Orlando. We thought this week we'd be talking about, maybe a Sweet 16 game against possibly Purdue, right? But we saw what happened to Purdue, and that's the way things go. What's your initial thoughts maybe on what you saw over the weekend and kind of how it all came to an end for the Blue Devils?
Yeah, I will say, I said it kind of before, and I even kind of tweeted it out that I was very excited about this tournament because, didn't know what's going to happen. If the regular season was any indicator of, what the season's going to be in the postseason, it's going to be kind of all over the place. But, I still had that hope, especially with us going, eight or nine in a row into the March Madness. So I had, more hope for our team. Kind of getting past that, maybe we get upset type thing. But it's a crazy tournament. I mean, as you saw, there's a few number one teams that got knocked off, and all around the same weekend too. So it's as a basketball fan, you kind of like seeing a lot of exciting games. But when you're actually a fan of your actual team, you're like, no, it's not that exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure Arizona fans and Purdue fans are not in a good stead right now. That's March, baby, and Virginia fans, right? Like I was in the building, courtside when that sequence occurred with Kihei Clark throwing the pass to half court, getting stolen, and I just looked, everybody on press row, we're looking at,
I was like, what is going on? Yeah. I was very confused by that play too, but when you're in the moment and you don't understand a lot of stuff that's going on, you kind of just kind of quick react. I'm sure he wants to have that pass back, but I was like watching it like, what could he possibly be thinking? Right. And he didn't throw the ball long enough for him to even go to like maybe close to 94 feet, for that fact. I was like, what is going on? But yeah.
Like he was trying to run the clock out maybe or something too, I thought, but there was 10 seconds. It's not going to be, physics ain't going to work for you there, pal.
Right.
Anyway, my point was March. We all looked at each other and said, March, this is March. This is great.
Yeah.
Such a great moment. But it wasn't great for Virginia fans. And that's our ultimate backup point. It happened to Duke. I mean, not in that manner by any stretch. And they lost to a team that was seeded ahead of them. They were the underdog against Tennessee. So that was a game that was supposed to be a toss up, and it was, and it did not go Duke's way. But as we talk about underdogs and odds and the brackets and everything, I do want to remind everybody that the Believe in Duke podcast is sponsored by Bet Online. Bet Online remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season, everything from pro and college basketball to UFC, MMA, and more. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchups, info, player news, game trends at Bet Online with live betting options, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. Bet Online is truly the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite leagues and events. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your rewards. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. The biggest thing, I guess, was, as we discussed the end of the season and the Tennessee game in particular, let's break that down and what happened. Because first of all, Duke played really well against Oral Roberts, right? That was a game. They were 30-4. They'd won 17 in a row. Duke didn't, they had turnovers in single digits, right? Shot well from 3-point, had balance going up and down the roster. So it really looked like, okay, this offense is together. The defense suffocated Oral Roberts. It was 74-51 was that final, right? So everything was clicking. And then you get into the Tennessee game, and Duke, I think like 19-13 lead or whatever it was, they kind of started to separate a little bit early. Looked like they had their footing. And then the heavy style of play of Tennessee, sitting courtside, it's just amazing. I mean, and I'm sure you appreciate physical play in the post, right? So there's nothing wrong with it. It's part of the game.
Right.
But they were on the perimeter. They were in everybody's shirt. I mean, they played intense defense, and they really, as Coach K would say, knocked the Blue Devils back.
Yeah, I mean, just coming into the tournament, we had, like you said, Oral Roberts. We got off to a good start, 15-0 run. I was looking at the size between our team and their team, and we were taller than them. And we were, figuring out ways to kind of like, just have that energy and just kind of go against their defense. They were one of the top higher scoring programs of the whole NCAA Division 1, and we held them to 26% shooting, especially in the first half. I mean, it was the sixth highest average scoring with 84 points, and we held them underneath that. So looking at that, looking at the team and looking how Whitehead came to the game hitting back-to-back threes. I'm like, okay, we have we are really hitting our stride into the tournament, and now we just kind of figure out like how are we going to keep this going. And then we had a little bit of a lapse where we got to a big score, big lead, and then kind of went down a little bit, but we got it back towards the end of the game. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, this is the nerves, this is like the energy and excitement about being in the tournament. So going into the Tennessee game, their whole game plan was not to play basketball. The whole game plan was to make it a ugly game. They talking about like, every time one of our guys come into the paint, they're gonna muck it up, touch them up a little bit, where kind of give them elbows and things like that. I mean, I think one of the very first couple of plays of the game, I forgot the big guy's name, but he gets the rebound and he just chucks Flip with the elbow, who's sitting right behind him, which wasn't really a play that needed to be done, but that was the presence that they were putting out there on the game where, no, this is going to be a hard-fought game. Y'all going to feel us every single possession, and that's what they did. And we were kind of thrown back by it because I don't remember a team doing it to us, constantly throughout the whole game like they did against Tennessee.
No, and people ask me, look, what did this remind you of? I saw every Duke game this year, right? So, like, what opponent did that? And I couldn't think of one. I honest to God couldn't. The only one I thought of was maybe Purdue because Edey was so big in the middle. But that was just in the paint. And Virginia, is physical in the paint with their defense, but not on the perimeter like that. Not when they're in everybody's shirts. And we saw the one play where Tyrese Proctor got hit in the face when the guy came across with the ball, which is kind of a classic, dirty, old school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It definitely. I mean, like you could tell that their whole game plan was for them to go out there, and from Rick Barnes was like, no, we're going to give it to them. That's what we're going to do. We're going to figure out what's going to happen. I've seen that happen in the past with him with Texas. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it didn't work because they didn't have the actual scores to actually kind of go back on the other end and do that. So you're kind of making it a nasty game like that. But like you said, it's still part of the game and it's still part of the basketball. It's just we don't see that a lot. So for me, if I'm one of the guys on the team, that's going to stick with me for a while. So I'm in the weight room. And I'm over here doing this, all summer long, all off season long. I mean, I may have a couple of days off, but I'm going to be in the weight room. I'm like, hey, Coach Will, hey, we got to get this right. Because, like, there's no way in the world I'm going to let this happen to me again on a big stage like that, too. There's no way. So for me to sit here and get in a physical game like that, oh, do you think that's the way you beat me? Nah. So all summer long, I'm going to have that, whether the titles, the articles, posted in my locker. I'm old school like that. So
motivation.
Yeah.
Tennessee shoves past, Duke can't. Right. Duke couldn't stand their ground. That's one thing I wrote. I mean, it was true. Yeah. You want to use it, put it up there, baby. I don't have a problem with that. It's true.
Motivation.
Look at it and motivate yourself. That's right. Yes. Because that was really one type of team that Duke really wasn't prepared, I guess, mentally and physically to play against. And normally, and we talked about this at the end of the regular season, Coach Shire and the players did that. The ACC prepares you to face all kinds of different teams, right? Virginia plays defense. Miami runs the ball a lot. Syracuse plays the zone, that kind of stuff. Didn't prepare them for this kind of game. There were no teams in the ACC that played like that this year. That's just the way it was. I mean, and there aren't a whole lot of teams in the country that play that physical and are that old. That's one thing you talk about the center in the middle, Plavsic, the kid from Serbia. He's 24 years old. Like, he's 6 years older than Flip or 5 years older than Flip. I mean, that's, he's a grown man.
Right. Exactly. Right.
And they just weren't ready for it. So the ones that decide to come back are going to have to work and get ready they need to feel that, that pain. And they do, believe me. I was in the locker room after, and I know Lively, who is not coming back, obviously at some point he'll be declaring for the NBA, but we all came here to do more than this. And they weren't, downplaying the ACC championship. Everybody, that's a great accomplishment for Duke. The banner goes up, all that kind of stuff. No question about that. That made this first year successful. but they came to win, more banners in March, which is what Duke does. And they all were very disappointed that they fell short. So I know that it's on their minds, and and like Ryan Young is coming back. He's got one more year because of COVID, and talking to him, he's going to use his last year of eligibility at Duke. He said it's his plan, and I was sure he'll be, up for team captaincy with his experience. This message will get through. He will be in there doing what you're saying. I have confidence in that.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. I didn't know about that. With Ryan Young, I do want to take a second because I tweeted this out before the game when Mark Mitchell didn't play, and I didn't know the extent to his knee. What happened the day before in practice, but the fact that his unorthodox physical play would have helped in this game, and we missed that kind of physicality from him because he's a guy that can, guard, 1 through 4, pretty much, small 5. He's a guy that can take, hits and be that tough defender. And, I forgot the guy's name, but he had a game of his life against us. Got the guy's name, but
he's from Uruguay, and I can't pronounce it. I can spell it, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
The guy that had 27 points.
Yeah. He had the game of his life. I'm like, I'm looking at a few games of him, and I'm like, there's no way he's playing like this all the time. So I'll go back, and I'm like, oh, of course he's gonna have his best game against Duke. I mean, it's only natural, right? But the fact that if they didn't have him, that ugly style of play, them kind of mucking it up type play, I don't think it would have went that way for them if he didn't have that type of game. But like I said, we were kind of knocked back by that, and us being younger and just not understanding the whole physicality game of what Texas brought, because we had never seen it before, and it's kind of hard to go against that for the first time and never having to really prepare for it, especially for a short time between the first game of the NCAA tournament and then the next game, because you only have a day off, even if you did have a time to kind of do something. And unfortunately we didn't have that. But I think Mark Mitchell, kind of go back to my point, I think if we would have had him, I think that would have been a great game for him, because he likes the physical play and he's able to kind of dish it out, because we didn't have a lot of guys that was able to dish it out. They were hitting us and we wasn't really hitting them back, and it's kind of hard to go one way. Flip, I will say, he was kind of dishing it back and being physical. It was hard for him because he was getting hit every single time. But I will say that he did not back down. I did see that. So it was harder for him to score the basketball, but I will say that he did not back down from the physical play.
Especially after taking that shot early and, opened up a cut and a bruise. Was bleeding. Yeah. Jose had to clean it up for him. Yeah. And he was right back out there within a few minutes. Like as soon as they got it.
It was 2 shots. I mean, the elbow and the face elbow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 2 shots. Yeah.
And he wasn't on the bench very long. I mean, he right back in there, and he went through a lot this year. And again, those 2 hits, there were no fouls called, right, on the one face. As he said, I can't catch a break this year. Like,
yeah.
Think about the Virginia Tech, like hit the throat.
Right. I know. I mean, I'm hoping that he comes back for us, because I think he has a little bit more to grow, as well as some of the other guys too. But I understand the whole process of being able to go to the NBA and have the opportunity and things like that. But I just wish that we had guys that at least stayed at least 2 years. Mm-hmm. What if Kills would have stayed last year? He was on our team this year. Or, guys in the past like DJ Stewart or Cassius Stanley. Guys like that. Hoping that maybe they see guys like that think they was going to do something else, whatever, and they kind of having a harder path right now. Maybe that kind of stick in their mind too. Like, hey, maybe with his NIL deals and everything like that, maybe 1 more year is not that bad. To, help me, further my process as a growth of the player.
And Flip, has said when I talked to him that how much he enjoyed being at Duke this year, like how much he knows he made the right decision by coming to Duke. And so we'll see if that factors into his decision to maybe come back another year, and play next season. So, sorry, clear throat a little bit there, but we'll see if how much that, excuse me, Sorry, had a little cough.
All right, no problem. No
Excuse
problem.
me, folks. Had to get that clear out of my throat. That's it with Flip. There are some questions about where he'll be drafted. He's not projected to be in the top half of the first round, even though he had a great season for Duke. There's some questions about the way he'll defend on the perimeter at the next level. He's got to get more physical. Obviously, he's got to develop. Which he's a young man. He's still got time to grow into his body a little more. So it's just a question if he wants to come back and spend another year in this system and improve even more, or if he wants to go ahead and do it in the NBA or in the whatever it may be, G League, NBA, wherever he may be. He's got a decision to make, and that's part of what's going to go in the off season here. Lively and Whitehead, are all but gone. It's just a matter of when they make their official announcements. There's all, they've pretty much said that's what they're going to do. But overall, and I mentioned this earlier, I do want to get back to it. Assessing Jon Scheyer's first year after Coach K, for the most part, going 27-9, winning the ACC championship. Yes, there were some down points during the season, right? There were some bad losses that Duke isn't used to absorbing. There was, 3 losses before January 1st. That hadn't happened for a while, but when you look at the whole picture, John did a pretty good job. I think he did a really good job. And no, they didn't get past the second round, which is not Duke standards either. So he's not happy about that. But I think everybody can agree. I think can that this program's on pretty solid foundation. And the major slippage that people feared would happen when Coach K retired doesn't seem to be happening. I mean, I think, do you agree with that, Sheldon?
Yeah, I think you totally hit it on the head right there. The era of the new Duke basketball era, Jon Scheyer led era, I will say that with all the adversities that he had to overcome with the players, being injured and not having his whole team healthy, for more than half the year, I think that he laid the foundation of what Duke basketball is going to become for years to come. And I think he did a great job this year of, kind of controlling the team and how they were being prepared through all these different adversities that they had to, overcome and face. So I think, with people coming in, I think they have no drop off from Coach K, which, like you said, a lot of people were trying to, say it might be a slippage or a drop off, whatever. There is none. 2, they are still a fun team to watch. There's no change with the basketball where we slowing down the basketball or, we still get out and run, still shooting a lot of shots, transition threes. We still a fun team to watch. And then the third thing is it's still the traditional Duke basketball. It's such a thing that you can go from the 80s to 90s to 2000s, 2010s. It's still consistent with Duke tradition. And that's something that Jon Scheyer laid the foundation for, and the rest of the coaching staff as well laid the foundation for. And a lot of players are seeing that. And I think it's going to be great for us to continue to get good talent come in and get over that next step for, us getting past the second round. I'm hoping with the 5 guys coming in, I'm hoping maybe we get somebody out of the transfer portal. If a couple guys did leave, maybe we get a bucket getter, maybe we get a absolutely 3-point shooter, that Grandison was supposed to have been and everything. Yeah. But I'm hoping that that's the case. But there's no drop off, there's no slippage. Duke basketball is still a fun team to watch and fun tradition program, and it's not going anywhere.
One guy they talked to last offseason before Grandison was Baylor Shireman, who plays for Creighton, and he had a big game against NC State. He wears the headband, the white headband.
Okay.
And he shoots well for he was at South Dakota State the year before. He was the player of the year of the summit. And he was at the combine last year in May. And I talked to him a little bit there, and he said, yeah, I had some conversations with Duke and everything, but he's more of a Midwestern guy, and he wanted to stay in Creighton and play for in Omaha, play for Creighton. And that's the kind of guy Duke needed this year, wasn't it? Like that kind of
yeah.
Granted, we thought was going to be it, and just wasn't. For whatever reason, he did. Now he brought some good things. I'm not trying to totally dismiss the leadership point of view, the experience he had. He was a great guy in that locker room. I know I talked to him a lot, and I know the impact he had on guys, and especially that pivotal meeting they had after the Miami loss. He was a big part of that. So, but the fact is, he didn't shoot 41% from 3-point like he did the previous 2 years at Illinois, and that's what they needed. So I do know that Shire wants to be he's in touch with the modern game, wants to be active in the transfer portal, add guys where he can, because he sees that when you have predominantly freshmen, when you go against a team like Tennessee, you're going to be at a disadvantage, and all the talent you have, it's hard to overcome that. Like, he wants to have some older guys and be less reliant on just freshmen. Now, he still wants to recruit, top freshmen. And so you got to try to balance it there. But he does see the need. And in the transfer portal era now, which, Coach K really didn't have access to that, because it's only been the last couple of years since it's become a big thing. And that was at the end of his time. So I would like to, and I know you probably could speak to this too, how Coach K would have adapted if he was, let's say he's 10 years younger than he was. Let's say he's 66 and he's still coaching. And now the transfer portal is out there. He was always so good at adapting to things, right? Like, he would have figured out a way.
Yeah. I mean, it was for up until, I think, maybe Dante Jones. Was he like the first transfer that Coach K did?
Yeah.
And it took, I'm not sure how many years that was before, he got his first transfer.
It's like 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years.
Yeah.
For the first one he ever did. And then I think after that, it didn't come again until
Seth Curry. Seth Curry came from Liberty in 2010.
Okay. So it was him that came in next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's something that you didn't see for a long time, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, well, if there's somebody that he likes that can fit the program, and he's big on character as well, and it can fit with other guys and what he's trying to do, he will do that. For a while he wasn't trying to go after the one and done players, and then I want to say a couple of years after my graduation team in 2006, we had lost maybe first round, maybe back-to-back years with Lehigh and Mercer, I think. Mercer, Lehigh.
So one of those years was VCU. That was before Lehigh and Mercer came in like 2012, 2014. Okay. You're talking about like in 2007, 2008. That was like VCU beat them one year.
Okay.
Didn't get past the second round, that kind of thing. It was starting to, we were seeing slippage, right? Yeah.
Right. We start seeing that, and all of a sudden, Coach K was like, I got to do something different. And all of a sudden he started going after, these so-called one and done, players. And then all of a sudden you start seeing, the Zions, the RJ Bears, the Marvin Bagleys, these type things, like, so all of a sudden he's back into being, in the fold of everything, the mix of everything. Because, Duke basketball is back with, high talented star-studded players, even though they are freshmen. So right. I think even he was 10 years younger, he would still be able to find a way to, still stay relevant in college basketball. I mean, at the end of the day, he's still Coach K.
Yeah.
Coach K calls you, and all of a sudden, like, you're gonna listen. You're like, hey, right. What's going on? You're like, you calling me? Like, you shaking the wrong number? Like, you calling me? Like,
right. I might want to, like Baylor Shireman, I might want to stay in the Midwest, but if Coach K's calling me,
right.
It's a little different. So yeah, the game has changed again now, right? Because you're right. It started with the one and done was Kyrie was the first one, and then Austin Rivers, and then Jabari Parker and on before on down
all
the road.
Guys,
and Brandon Ingram, I could name them all, Jason Tatum, the whole thing.
Right.
But he did adapt, and now it's time for John Shire, to adapt to the transfer portal era, where it's free agency. You can go get, it's like the NBA. You can go get a guy who's eligible now. You don't have to sit out and wait a year, like Seth Curry had to wait a year. Rodney Hood, when he came in.
Rodney Hood, another transfer.
State, had to wait a year, and at that time they really tried to get him eligible immediately. That's when they would give waivers. They were just starting to give waivers out for if you had a situation, and they really tried to get him in that, and the NCAA didn't go for it, so they had to sit out a year. So, but now you don't have to worry about that. So now, you can look in the off season right now. The transfer portal is already filled with thousands of guys. It's only been 2 weeks, and there's 1,000 guys in there at least. So. It's there for the picking, and there are scholarships available. Grandison's leaving, obviously his eligibility has been used up, so he can't come back. Ryan Young does want to come back, and so that'll be good. And then, we'll see how many guys go to the NBA. But that's stuff that we'll talk about as we go forward here on the podcast on further episodes, as we get further away from the regular season. and into the off season. And right now things are a little bit, the guys are, the coaches are all like kind of relaxing, like, okay, it ended faster than what we thought, right? So we got to try to, re-recruit the guys that are coming in, make sure they're all Caleb Foster and Jared McCain and those guys, Sean Stewart. Make sure they're all good to go when they're coming in the summer. They're getting ready for the McDonald's All-American game. So a lot of those guys are going to be in that.
Yeah, McDonald's All-American game, then also the Allen Iverson round ball. I think Round Ball Classic. But a lot of these guys coming in for that. So for them to kind of, yes, the season ended a little bit earlier, but maybe they can, kind of put some reassurance into these guys, while they're doing these McDonald's games or these All-Star games that they getting ready for. And then it's pretty much the waiting game, I guess, from at home on campus, like what these guys want to do. I mean, you can try to recruit them as well. So it's kind of like, you're trying to recruit both the current players and then the guys coming in, trying to give them reassurance.
Yeah.
And then you get to go, like you said, with the transfer portal and try to see, some guys. I'm sure that's kind of hard because you can't really go after certain guys until you know for sure about the current state of your team. And also, like, do you lose on the possibility of having another guy, or does this person get mad because they started to recruit this guy, and all of a sudden, like, oh, I haven't given you my decision yet if I will leave. Now you're trying to recruit over me. Like, I'm sure that's kind of a confusing thing because that's something that I never thought about because it wasn't in when I was in school.
Right. There's a lot of politics massaging with that situation because just think about last year, Joey Baker. Remember Joey Baker? Announced in April he was having surgery on his hip, but he's going to come back and play his last year at Duke. And then, they started going after Baylor Shireman and AJ Green and Jacob Grandison. And I think Joey kind of saw, wait a minute, that's kind of my position, but they're not sure if I'm going to be, good enough. So he decided to transfer to Michigan, right? So even then it changed. And I remember having a conversation with a couple of assistants and Coach Shire and everything about, you really have to, if you put it out there that you're going after somebody, because it's in the transfer portal era, guys put their name in there and that makes them, they can contact schools and schools can contact them. That makes it open. It's legal then. There's no tampering. And so then it gets out who's talking to who. And then people on your own team go, wait a minute. Oh, I thought that was my job. Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll put my name in the portal and go. So then it's shifting
different.
Sand, right?
Right. It's different. It's very different. So it's like you said, kind of playing both fields and trying to make sure that everybody's happy while you still trying to get the your agenda at the end of the day, like one of these players coming in. So it's different. I'm not that's a tough job for John Shire and staff, but I'm sure they're gonna have a good job of dealing with that. He had at least 1 year in his belt with experience with Young and Grandison that came in from this year's team. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening. I know the program is in good hands, but I'll be very interested to see how things kind of play out.
Right, and we will continue to discuss this as news warrants. I guess we'll put podcasts up in the off season to keep people updated on what's happening with transfer portal, NBA declarations, recruiting. At some point we'll know the schedule for next year. I know Arizona's coming into Duke, to Cameron for a non-conference game. That's the first of that home and home. That'll be cool. There's a new SEC Big Ten challenge. I'm sorry, SEC ACC challenge. It's not the ACC Big Ten anymore because of the contract changes with TV network. So maybe
give us Tennessee.
Yeah, maybe so. They would love that. I think that'd be great.
Yeah,
have them come to Cameron, right? I think I know Duke's hoping to be at home. So
give us Tennessee. That's what, if I'm one of the current players, I want Tennessee.
yes, that's right. Again, up in the locker right there, like
right,
ready to go. All right. Well, listen, everybody, thanks for listening to us this season on the Believe in Duke podcast, sponsored by Bet Online. We've enjoyed bringing it to you. It's a fun, lively chat every week. We try to keep you updated on the ins and outs of the program. Sheldon, we'll see what the offseason brings, huh? We'll see if Duke can build another championship caliber team. I'm sure they will.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. We're in good hands. So sit and wait.
Very good. All right, everybody. And we'll let you know when another edition's coming out here in the offseason. Thanks for joining us for this one.
All right.